I am posting this video in one take, essentially as a Facebook status, but one that would be way too long for anyone to read and will probably be too long for anyone to watch. The election's over, politics are on Facebook, a lot of people are annoyed by it, I understand, so I'm going to try to keep it short, but I'm probably going to fail miserably, because I have a lot of emotions and thoughts regarding last night and all of our victories for American progress. Over the past few months, I spent a lot of time volunteering and supporting the Obama campaign, the Political Action Committee with Planned Parenthood, Act Blue, which is an organization that has helped fund Democratic Senate and House candidates, and other local candidates for office that I campaigned for also. I invested hard-earned money, time, and energy in supporting these causes. I gave all the money I could afford to give. I literally called thousands of voters on the phone. I knocked on over 200 doors. Most people were pretty nice. And in my downtime, I occasionally posted things on Facebook about the candidates in the presidential election. You might have seen some of those posts. Why did I do all that? Because this year, the fundamental rights and the dignity of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered people in this country were at stake. Because this year, national politicians stood apathetically or firmly against the rights of women to equal pay, access to birth control, etc. Because this year, the Republican candidate demonstrated an ignorance with regard to foreign policy and military affairs, and would have likely launched another war in the Middle East, in Iran, if we had let him into office. Because this year, the Republican candidate proposed a mathematically impossible tax plan that would sink us even further into debt by eliminating lots of government revenue without sufficiently explaining how we would get that revenue back. And yes, because PBS has statistically been wonderful for early education, and because I happen to love Big Bird. I hope you do too. In March of 2008, I had the privilege of meeting a senator from Illinois named Barack Obama. In the brief moment that I was there with him, I got to shake his hand. Now, this is going to sound extremely cheesy, but bear with me and brace yourself. His hand was large, yet the flesh within it was soft at the same time, despite the firm skin that I felt, encompassing my little tiny 8th grade hand. And I could feel the flesh giving a little bit despite the firm texture of the skin, and I really felt like, this is a leader who's going to be strong and compassionate. Now, of course, that was a terrible reason for me to think he'd be a good leader. So, it's 4.5 years later, and despite the drone strikes, the lack of immigration reform, the slow progress on environmental issues and sustainability, NDAA, the continuing war on drugs, the overall inability to work in a bipartisan manner, the slow economic recovery, the debt, and the ballooning influence of big money in politics, I stand today a greater supporter of Obama, as you can probably tell, than ever before. This is a man who overall has fought incredibly hard for every single person in America, has had integrity, has kept many of his promises, has gracefully restored respect for America in many parts of the world, has fought for education, for women's rights, for LGBT rights, for American manufacturing, and has promoted the private sector job growth that we've seen in every single month consecutively for the past 32 months. This is a man who has demonstrated that he does truly love America and cares about every single American. We're on the right track as far as I'm concerned, and Obama has earned a second term. Last night, his volunteers on the ground helped him win almost every single swing state, woohoo! And he won the presidency, which wasn't much of a surprise to anyone really paying attention, except for Mitt Romney, who had only written one speech for the evening, his victory speech. Romney took some time to whip up a very short but sincere speech, and I applaud him for ending his campaign gracefully. I fundamentally disagree with many of the issues he took, many of the issues in the campaign as far as his positions on them, but I respect him a lot as a person. I was with my volunteer buddies from Planned Parenthood last night when Obama took Ohio and clinched the presidency. I was thrilled, and I was in tears, and I was very emotional. The people that I called in Ohio, the money I gave, the doors I knocked on, it made a bit of a difference. And I can tell you that there's no better feeling than knowing that your work made a difference for the causes you believe in. I was on cloud 9 because, in fact, every single person I directly campaigned for on a national and local level won their election. It was a victory for American progress in a lot of ways. In congressional races, America made a statement that if you make insensitive or ridiculous comments about rape, you're gonna lose. Richard Murdoch said that pregnancy from rape is, quote, something that God intended to happen. He lost his race. Roger Rivard said that consensual sex can quickly turn into rape because, quote, some girls rape easy. He lost his race. Todd Aiken infamously said, with reference to a woman's reproductive capabilities, that, quote, if it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to sort of shut that whole thing down. Yeah. So no, they don't have the ability to do that. I don't think you've spoken to very many women who have been impregnated during rape, and you're classifying some rapes as legitimate, whereas others would be illegitimate. Todd Aiken lost his race to Claire McCaskill. We saw some more progress with religious diversity in Congress. Tulsi Gabbard became the first Hindu in Congress. Mazie Hirono became the first Buddhist in Congress, and also the first Asian American senator, and the first senator born in Japan. Ine. And both Muslims in Congress, Keith Ellison and Andre Carson, were re-elected. Huge strides for female representation in Congress last night as well. There are now more women in Congress than ever before. Every Democratic woman up for Senate re-election won their race. Elizabeth Warren, who I happen to love, and you should look her up if you get a chance, won her race and became the first female senator from Massachusetts. New Hampshire elected the first ever all-female delegation. They now have 2 female senators, 2 female representatives, and a woman named Maggie Hassan as their governor. I think that's pretty fantastic. We also saw some big strides for LGBT rights in this country. Representative Kirsten Sinema from Arizona became the first openly bisexual person in the U.S. Congress. Tammy Baldwin from Wisconsin famously became the first openly gay U.S. Senator. That's pretty fantastic. For the first time ever, a ballot measure against same-sex marriage was defeated. That took place in Minnesota. And beautifully, marriage equality was passed in 3 of our 50 states: Maine, Maryland, and Washington. What do all these progressive victories mean, especially Barack Obama's large electoral victory? Quite simply, the Republican Party has a lot of work to do. Over the past few years, the influence of the Tea Party and other extreme, ultra-conservative factions of the Republican Party have caused them to become more and more extreme. They used to be opposed to abortion. Recently, they've become known as being opposed to contraception and birth control and a woman's access to those things as well. They used to be known as being proponents of border security. Recently, some of them, or in the last few years, some of them have actually become known for racial profiling. The numbers say it all from last night. Romney did terribly with Hispanics, Asian Americans, LGBTQ individuals, did poorly with Native Americans, women, and young voters, for sure, and didn't even do all that well with Caucasians, only 58% of whom voted for him. There was all this talk about how young voters wouldn't be as enthusiastic about Obama this time around, but due to Romney's ultra-conservative positions, his lack of integrity, we actually saw more young voters in this election than we did in 2008, which was pretty cool. Maybe Big Bird had something to do with that. When 71% of Hispanics and 68% of unmarried women are voting against you, you need to switch things up in your party. There simply aren't enough working-class white males or people born before the Eisenhower administration anymore to lift the GOP as it currently is. And in 2016, those 2 demographics will be even a smaller percentage of the electorate. If the Republican Party wants to find a way to appeal to more voters, they're going to have to distance themselves a bit from Tea Party extremism and ultra-conservatism. If they don't, there will be an even greater disunity in this country, an even greater congressional gridlock, and the GOP will never find their way back in the Oval Office. For the most part, I feel that Mitt Romney lost the election last night in the Republican primaries. The GOP lost it right then by being too conservative. For Romney to win the primary, he had to go hardcore right-wing, like for example on immigration, and that ruined his chances in the general election because to appeal to America overall, he had to either change his position by moving back to the center, lie, or keep being ultra-conservative. And he kind of ended up employing a mix of all 3 of those based on the issue, and none of them worked out for him. Here's a perfect example of how ultra-conservative our Republican Party is in the United States. We're pretty much the most conservative English-speaking country in the world. I can't scroll through my Facebook right now or yesterday without seeing somebody saying, well, time to move to Canada. But Canada has socialized medicine and a universal healthcare system run by the government. They're more liberal than us. I also have seen people saying, time to go to Australia. Well, in Australia they also have single-payer healthcare. Literally 93% of the population supports President Obama, and their prime minister is an unmarried atheist woman. So, England? No, they have enormous taxes, strong unions, and guns are nearly illegal there. New Zealand is more liberal, as is nearly everywhere in Europe, so that essentially in the English-speaking world leaves Israel. So if you really feel like liberalism is taking this country too far, you can go to Israel. But I hope that you do well over there as a Christian. My point is that American conservatism has become American ultra-conservatism. I truly hope that the more rational conservatives in this country, and I've met tons of great ones, and there are plenty of great ones out there, are able to reclaim the Republican Party. It would be in their best interests, and in the best interests of America, to have a party known for reasonably standing up for the conservative values of limited government, individual liberty, and dependence on self, without disenfranchising a lot of voters. Right now we have unlimited, undisclosed campaign financing, which leads to record numbers of dollars spent on campaign ads which ruthlessly attack good people, oversimplify issues, and divide our nation. We have echo chamber news outlets and pundits that only give their loyal viewers the side of the story that those viewers tune in to see and hear. And what has this led to? In my opinion, we have two parties that want to focus on their differences rather than working together. And what America needs is two parties that are focused on working together despite fundamental differences. And it shouldn't take a natural disaster for us to figure out how to get Republicans and Democrats to work together. I hope this election has taught us all something. I hope that I have done more to inspire people to care about politics than I have to dissuade people from politics. And I hope that we as a nation can come together to work for the best interests of this country and this world. Thank you so much for watching this super long Facebook status.